गुड मॉर्निंग अवनीत।
हे हाय।
अवनीत 2 मिनट में आ रही हूँ मैं, ठीक है? दो
हाँ
मिनट
हाँ,
दो।
नो प्रॉब्लम।
In getting better at it. Okay, where is the slideshow from beginning? I hope my screen is visible. Can someone just confirm?
Yes, it is visible.
Awesome. Cool. So please avoid any distractions because it is crypto. It is little tricky, and you people need to have your focus, because if you miss on the previous slide, the next slide, the related things would be not easy to catch up, right? But this is all what we have in the agenda today. We'll do a quick recap of last sessions. Not all the topics, but just a quick recap of the salient things, right? And then progress ahead. Larger focus is on crypto, so we'll focus on that. Somebody had a question last time that what certification is recommended for identity and access management. So there you go. Uh, the last certification that you see here that I've added, Certified Identity and Access Management. I'll recommend that. You can go for CISSP as well, but particularly to identity and access management, this is the certification that caters to that field. Okay, let's do a quick recap of last two sessions. CIA, confidentiality, integrity, availability, right? C is like keeping things protected from access by unauthorized people, not letting them view something which they should not be seeing. It could be your personal information, it could be your personal pictures, it could be your confidential organizational related data, right? So it's more of viewing things by unauthorized people, right? So keeping things secret, that's what is confidentiality. I stands for integrity. This is all about modification. So while confidentiality was access to the data, able to see that out, integrity is all about modification of that data. So if somebody is able to see it out, but not able to change or modify, then confidentiality is impacted. But if somebody is able to delete that data, modify its form, right, then integrity is also impacted in that case. And then the last is availability. That is more of any system, any service, any application should not be that easy to be brought down, right? Its performance should be good. It should continue functioning as it is. It should have fault tolerance. So that's all is about availability. Like denial of service attack, when it happens, how does the application behave, right? It can kind of bring down the entire business if a basic denial of service attack is leading to performance degradation where users are not able to use your platform or the service that you're providing. Access control framework, so authentication, authorization, accounting. So authentication is about identity. Authorization is, okay, what permission, what privilege somebody is having. Authorization is always associated with privilege permissions. Accounting is logging and monitoring of all the actions so that non-repudiation can be enforced, right? And people cannot repudiate, cannot deny doing something. So that's why accounting is also important, right? You entered an airport without a ticket, and if they do not have any CCTV or any monitoring, then you can simply deny that I never entered that out, right? But if they have a CCTV, they can show you a picture and say that, hey, you entered on so and so time, on so and so date. So that's what is accounting. Authentication, who you are, authorization, what permission you have, accounting, kind of keeping a track of all the activities and actions that you're doing for a given infrastructure, for a given system, so that you cannot deny doing something. Principle of least privilege. So that's more to do with any application users that you're using, what minimum permission or privileges can be given to you to perform your duty or functionality. As a user of Flipkart or Amazon, as a user or as a customer, my duties are bare minimum to purchase things, get things ordered, cancel an order. I cannot add a product as a consumer unless I become a seller. So that profile is altogether different, right? I can give reviews. I cannot delete other people reviews. I cannot modify other people reviews. So that's how the role of a buyer user is defined on these platforms. They follow principle of least privilege. I cannot kind of restart their server, or I cannot kind of change their DNS entry. uh, I cannot delete some files on the server. I cannot do a disk cleanup to improve the performance. That those duties are not exposed to the end users. That are left to the admins, right? So that's what is principle of least privilege. Always, you can take a house example. There also, inadvertently, we follow principle of least privileges, right? I mean, in an ideal house where things are like well balanced and well controlled, most of the houses are expected to be like that, because you don't want your 3 or 4 year kids to play around with a iron or a gas stove, right? So it'll prevent that from happening. So it'll try to keep things out of their reach. At the same time, the locker where you're keeping valuables, that also would be out of reach of kids or even your maid or cook who are visiting your house, right? So yeah, follow principle of least privileges in your personal life, as well as when you're working on developing a software. We also discussed about stride models, spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, elevation of privileges, right? So spoofing is like you trying to act as somebody else and try to act as though you are XYZ. Like, I mean, as part of this call also, I have the presenter right. And Avneet has kind of given that right to me, but other participants, they would not have presenter right. They would not be able to present. So principle of least privilege is followed. Now, suppose that somebody else joins as Sandeep and Avneet gets confused and she passes down the presenter right to that person, and he starts presenting some marketing material or something that's not good for this session, right? Then he is spoofing my identity, or he or she is spoofing my identity. Next is tampering, modifying the data and changing it out. So Avneet did share me the joining link. Suppose that somebody tampers that URL, and instead of joining this meeting, I join some other meeting, or any of you join some other meeting. So that's what is tampering, modification of the data where integrity gets impacted. Uh, Repudiation. So uh, I deny receiving the mail, or Avneet denies that she has not sent the mail, right? Both of them will qualify to be coming under the reputation picture. Or any of you putting a message in the chat and saying that you have not put it out, right? So it becomes visible to everybody, and it comes with your name, it comes from your account where you need to authenticate and log in yourself. That takes care of non repudiation, where you cannot deny that you sent that message. Information disclosure, suppose that as part of this meeting, while logging in, whatever username password you are using for the Zoom, that becomes visible in the chat for some reason, or accidentally you type your password in the chat. That's where information disclosure is happening. You're disclosing something that should not be known to the public. Denial of service attack, if you're not able to join this meeting that we are having now because of certain issues at the Zoom that somebody exploits and make sure that all the participants are not able to join, that's where denial of service attack will happen. I'm just taking this meeting as an example for all of these. Elevation of privilege, if any of you are able to take the role of Avneet and remove other participants from the meeting, or keep them in mute all the time, do not let them speak, that's where elevation of privileges will happen, because your role is participant and Avneet is more of an organizer, right? So if you're able to do that, elevation of privilege will happen. So I'll not go through these details, we have already discussed this out. Yeah, some examples are here from incident perspective. An attacker reads all emails sent by you by eavesdropping communication in your network. So that's information disclosure, right? An attacker modifies an incoming email, tampering, modification of the email, that means tampering, right? So tampering attack comes into picture. An attacker forces a website to shut down. So that's denial of service that comes into picture. An attacker logs into the website using your account by successfully guessing your login credential. Spoofing, he is spoofing your identity. You enter a server room without permission, elevation of privileges. Whoever does that out, that means that they didn't had the privilege. They entered a highly privileged area without having the access. You transfer $1,000 to another account using net banking application, but later you refute, you deny that you did that out. So that's repudiating. You are claiming that you never did it out, and if bank doesn't have enough check to enforce non-repudiation, then you would be successful in your claim, and bank would have to pay you $1,000, right? So that's why accounting is important, logging and monitoring is important to ensure that people are not repudiating and making false claims. This is on the risk evaluation. So it's when you try to prioritize the vulnerability, right? The priority is largely influenced by two factors: how likely is that attack going to happen, and what is the impact. So likelihood plus impact. It's not alone impact, it's also likelihood, right? And there are several other sub factors, like how frequently that can happen, what is the value of the asset that you are kind of impacting, right? So if it is a flight booking application, and if it is a blog, or it is a sensitive uh, defense website, right? All of them will have different asset value. If I'm just publishing a blog, and if that goes down, or somebody is able to do something malicious on that, the impact of that would be not much compared to a commercial e-commerce website or a sensitive defense application, right? So that also comes into picture. Asset value is that. Security measures and environmental context. So okay, there is a likelihood of attack, there is an impact that is happening, but are there any measures that can kind of prevent that from happening, so that we get additional time to fix it out? Can we kind of enable something at the firewalls as a temporary measures? So all those would be taken into consideration. But at the larger level, always remember that when you're prioritizing a vulnerability, you have to focus on likelihood. That is one factor, and the second factor is how bad is the impact of that. Threat versus vulnerability versus exploit versus risk. So threat is something is about to go wrong, right, in any of the application that you're taking up. So for this meeting that we are having, the threat is that Zoom goes down. It's not going down, but that's a threat. That's a legitimate threat. What is the backup option? It might be that we'll utilize Google Meet or Teams channel for having the meeting. But threat is that the Zoom call can go down. Now, if there is a vulnerability using which any of the participant can do something, send something in the chat, and that crashes the Zoom meeting, that becomes a vulnerability, right? That okay, there is a specific problem in the input validation because of which the whole Zoom meeting will get start crashing out. So that's more of a vulnerability. The specific input that is causing the crash, that can be called as exploit, because that's something active. Vulnerability is lack of input validation that is causing the vulnerability. One set of input, there could be multiple set of input that are causing the crash. One set of input, that's payload or exploit, that as soon as somebody puts that in the chat, it will crash it out. That's exploit. The risk is what is the loss or damage uh, due to the attack that is happening. So for this meeting, it would be kind of a loss of time for say 40 participants that are in the call today, right? So time is precious for everybody, and even like the whole GFH Foundation that is running this program, that would kind of get a get a bit hampered because of the Zoom meeting crashing, right? So that's the whole risk. They will have a brand impact. You people will lose time. You might lose interest as well, right? So that's more to do with the risk perspective. So threat is something going wrong. Whether it is really there is a way to go things go wrong, that we do not know. When you do a threat modeling, you largely put forward all the threats blindly without thinking whether it is really going to happen or not. Then you analyze that out and prove whether it is a vulnerability or not, depending on whether it is really going to happen or not. That becomes a vulnerability. The specific payload or the script that you use for that vulnerability to occur, that's exploit. And the whole damage that happens because of the exploitation, that's all the risk, right? So remember these terms. Now we'll kind of dive into the cryptography area, right? So can try to put pay attention to whatever we are discussing, because cryptography is always challenging for all of us. It's not just for you people. For anybody, cryptography sounds little complicated, right? So cryptography is like a secret code that helps keep information safe and secure. It's a way of scrambling data so that only the people who are meant to see it can understand it. So that's at high level, right? You have to send some information to somebody. You can talk to somebody in a sign language also, so that you and he or she only can understand that out, right? I mean, suppose that you have a kid at your home, and you and your spouse need to kind of tell something without letting the kid know, right? Suppose that one of you are going out, so you can have a kind of a secret talk or secret knowledge so that kid doesn't understand. You might use a language that kid has not heard of it, right? I mean, if you both are say that you both are familiar in a different language that you often do not speak at home, like German, let's take example of, and then you can in German you can say that okay, that word, and the kid doesn't understand, so the communication is done, but it's more of a secret communication. So that's in nutshell, that's how you can take it up. What is cryptography? Think of it like sending a private message in a locked box, and the only person with the key can open it out. The box cannot be broken, and as soon as somebody breaks the box, the content gets destroyed, right? So that's at another example how to understand cryptography. Cryptography is used in many areas such as online shopping, banking, email communication to protect sensitive information from being accessed by unauthorized people. So it does provide confidentiality. That is very sure that we can already see that out, right? Uh, More and more things are happening online. We are using IoT. We are embracing more and more transactions that take place online. All those are happening because we are embracing cryptography. We are leveraging cryptography to keep things secure, make sure that things are hard to break for hackers and adversaries, right? Imagine the banking that we are doing online today. If cryptography was not there, and it was not used in the way we are using it today, that would not have been possible. It would have been all futile, and people would not be doing so many online transactions that take place today, because keeping things secure would not have been possible. You would have heard of TLS, SSL, right? So that ensures that the whole communication is happening over encrypted channels. It ensures that transit level secrecy. So if whatever data we are exchanging while we are logging in to a banking website or an e-commerce website, that goes through a encrypted tunnel and nobody can kind of eavesdrop. Yeah, there are ways people can do man-in-the-middle attack, but if the devices are secure and if the users are handling things maturely, nobody would be able to eavesdrop because we have a secure mechanism, right? And provided the servers that you're using, they are good and they have kind of kept it hardened and patched, right? Now, from a consumer perspective, if you give your device to somebody and he or she is malicious, they configure a proxy, they force approve or accept a certificate on your device, and then they route the whole traffic through your mobile to their proxy, then for sure they would be able to see the data. So the problem is not on the web server in such cases. The problem lies that whoever you gave your device to, he or she had a malicious certain intent, and they kind of configured a proxy to go through uh, to route all the traffic that you are browsing through that proxy server. Now, that also would at times give you alert that hey, the traffic might be monitored because the devices are more capable and more mature today. But if you're not paying attention to them, you will kind of keep passing all the data that you're browsing or typing in. Now, why cryptography? So let's understand some of the application of the cryptography, right? So one is confidentiality in the transit that we already discussed, right? You're logging in to application, the whole login credential, because your login credentials are important. That can give somebody else access to the website or the service that you're trying to avail, right? So that should be sent in a kind of a protected way to the server, right? So confidentiality in transit for sure, that's important, right? And that's one area that where it comes into picture. It doesn't allow adversary to view the data, right? So that's how cryptography is used. Second is keeping data at rest confidential. So whatever files you have on in an organizational laptop, generally they are encrypted at the rest, right? They have a disk level encryption, and that also is done by the cryptography. You could have your pictures, or you could have your personal data, like a lot of banking related data that you do not want anybody to see. You can kind of keep them encrypted with a key, and only you would be able to decrypt that out. So that becomes another example for data at rest. The whole data that organization keep in the databases of their customers, they are kept encrypted. So again, that's encryption of data at rest. Confirming authenticity, like using digital signature to confirm if a person is a legitimate person or not, right? So again, that is also a purpose of cryptography. Detecting data tampering, as you can see in this example, that somebody's mark sheet said 37 and he or she had failed. They tampered it and made it as 87 and pass. But if there is a proper detection, then it would kind of get alerted, and it will not be treated as a valid document. So that's another area where cryptography comes into picture. Prevent denial or repudiation of an action, right? So that's another area where cryptography will come into picture, where people would not be able to refute or deny doing something. Now let's learn two of the popular categories of cryptography: symmetric versus asymmetric, right? So in terms of key usage, uh, symmetric cryptography uses one key. Asymmetric cryptography uses two keys. So remember that out. Symmetric cryptography is also called as shared key cryptography, right? So how does cryptography really work? Like you have some sensitive data, you kind of encrypt that out, and then whoever wants to decrypt it, whether you or somebody else, they should be knowing the key to decrypt it out. So when it comes to symmetric, where only one key is used. It is also called as shared key cryptography. In case of symmetric, only one key is used. Whatever key you use for encrypting the data, the same key is used for decrypting the data as well. So you need to share the key with somebody else who needs to decrypt the data. So suppose that today I want to send the quiz question in an encrypted way to all of you, right? And I agree on a key, but I have to find out ways how can I pass down that decryption key to you in a secure manner so that it doesn't go in hand of everybody, right? Suppose that I have to send my credit card details to one of my relative because they want to do some transaction. Normally, I should not be doing that. We should tend to avoid sharing such sensitive detail, but let's assume that that has to be done, or any sensitive information that I want to share with him or her. So I'll encrypt it out, and then I have to find ways how should I pass that the key, because if along with the data that is encrypted, if I'm sending the key also, whoever gets both of them together, they would be able to kind of decrypt it out, right? So that's for the symmetric key. When it comes to asymmetric key or public key cryptography, there are two keys. One key is used for encryption and the other key is used for decryption. So suppose that I have to send a data to any of you, I'll use your public key to encrypt the data, and you will use your private key to decrypt the data. So each user will have two pair of keys, one public key and one private key. So asymmetric is also called as public key cryptography, not private key cryptography, but public key cryptography. Remember that out, right? And each it will involve two keys for any data exchange, like public key and private key. Suppose that I want to send data to you, right? I'll require two keys. It will require two keys, one public key and one private key. And if you have to send a data, then again two keys will come into picture. So overall four keys would be required. Suppose that I also have to send data to you and you also have to send data to me. So both of us should have our own public and private key for encryption and decryption. Public key is something that is accessible to everybody that people can use to encrypt the data. The data can only be decrypted using private key of the person for whose public key was used for encrypting the data. The next point is speed. So speed of symmetric key is fast. It is more efficient, right? And makes it more suitable for encrypting large amount of data. Asymmetric key encryption or public key cryptography is slower due to complex mathematical calculation, typically used for encrypting smaller pieces of data such as keys and small messages. What is the use of symmetric key? So it is used for routine data transmission where speed is essential and both parties can securely share a secret key, like file encryption or protecting data in databases, right? So blindly you can say that the files that are at rest or the data in database, they are using symmetric key for encryption. When it comes to asymmetric or public key cryptography, frequently used in scenarios where secure key exchange is necessary without prior secure communication channels, such as digital signature and securing communications over the internet with SSL and TLS certificates. So the whole communication that we do using SSL and TLS, right? The whole browsing, transactions, sensitive operation, personal details that we are sharing over the internet, right? That utilizes TLS, and TLS uses asymmetric public key cryptography for exchanging the session ID or the key. And then beyond that, once the exchange is done, it uses symmetric key cryptography because that is faster, right? So the problem for symmetric key cryptography is key exchange, and that gets solved by asymmetric or public key cryptography because it uses a public and private key pairs, right? And it helps in doing a exchange of symmetric key, right? So that the whole communication beyond the exchange can be using the symmetric key cryptography. So the initial handshake that happens when you are opening a website which is over HTTPS, there would be a session key that will get exchanged using public and private key. And beyond that, the whole communication would use symmetric key encryption for ensuring that the communication is protected and it is happening over an encrypted tunnel. So let's look symmetric key cryptography, which is also called as shared key cryptography, that just uses one key, right? The same key for encryption and decryption. That's what is symmetric key cryptography. Symmetry is something which is more of a symmetry thing, right? So remember the difference between symmetric. Symmetric is something that is more of a similar approach on both the sides. So that's why it is called as symmetric. So encryption and decryption uses the same key. That's what is symmetric key. So here we have two people, Alice and Bob, and then there is some adversary or attacker who is in between the communication. Alice wants to tell to Bob that the access code for the server room is this, and she wants to share it with Bob, right? So what she will be doing, she will be using an encryption algorithm, and she will have a key that she has already shared with Bob when she might have physically met Bob in past, that hey, this is the encryption key that I'm going to use all the time, right? And when I'm sending you any data. So remember, this is the encryption key. Keep it with you. Whenever you get an encrypted data for me, use this for decrypting. Or she might have sent it through different channel. She might have sent it using another way where public key cryptography was used, right? And she used Bob's public key to encrypt the symmetric key and sent it to Bob, and Bob uses his private key to decrypt it out. But both are having the key at the moment, the same key, right? So this is symmetric key encryption, and Alice wants to send this message to Bob, and she encrypts it using a key that she has. She passes the key to the encryption algorithm along with the message, right? Then it will generate a ciphertext, right? That will be in a format that is not readable, that is not understandable. So remember, encryption algorithm accepted two parameters or two data values. One was the message, one was the key that Alice is using, right? Now the attacker sees this encrypted message. He or she doesn't have the key that Alice has used, and he or she would not be able to kind of decrypt it out. Now, when Bob's received the message, remember and see that he is using the same encryption key that Alice has used to decrypt it out. And he gets the message into plain text, and then he knows what Alice wanted him to do. Now, what are the popular symmetric key algorithm? AES, 3DS, Blowfish. So these are some of the popular symmetric key algorithms. So these are some of the names that you can remember. What are the key challenges for symmetric key uh, encryption or cryptography that we're using? Key distribution that we can clearly see, right? If you're doing it over like millions of people that are on the web, the key exchange in this case, okay, Alice met Bob and then they kind of agreed on a key. Now, if Bob has to send message back to Alice, he has to go and meet Alice again and share the key. So key distribution for sure is a prime problem. Scalability, because each of them will have to have unique key for each pair of communication. Let's assume that there is another person called as John here. Now, Alice has to communicate with John, right? So she would have to have a different key for communicating to John. And if John has to communicate back to Alice, he would have to have a different key for communicating back to Alice. If John has to communicate back to Bob, he has to have a separate pair of keys for communicating with Bob. So for each pair of communication, there would be a larger number of keys that would be required, right? It's going to be a problem to manage that many keys for all kind of a communication that we are going to use, right? If everybody starts having their own unique symmetric key, they have to share it with other people, and for each pair of communication, they need to have unique keys. So if there are like n users, then how many keys are required for a cryptography system? Then the answer would be n into n minus 1 by 2. So suppose that there are 2 users, right? So the number of keys that would be required would be 2 into 2 minus 1 divided by 2, which is 2 into 1 by, okay, so if there are two users, yeah, there are like two keys that would be required. If there are three users like Alice, Bob, and John, right? In that case, it would be 2 into 2 minus 1 and by 2. So that will again be, okay, let me think. If it is 3, yeah, it would be 3 into 3 minus 1 by 2. So it would be 3 keys that would be required for the communication. 3 into 2 by 2. Similarly, if there are 10 users, it would be 10 into 10 minus 1, which is 9 divided by 2. So it would be 45 keys that would be required for that communication system. So remember the formula. It would be always n into n minus 1 by 2. For symmetric key, that many keys would be required. Same is not true for asymmetric cryptography, because everybody has their public or private key. Public key is known to everybody, so each user blindly will have like double number of keys, right? So with that, they should be able to communicate. Every user will have public and private keys. Key compromise. Key can be kind of leaked, right? And suppose that Bob is handling the key and he's not handling it well, so somebody can kind of know the key that Alice has shared with Bob, right? In case of public and private key, everybody has to protect their private key. The responsibility and onus is on them. But suppose that Bob has to manage Alice key, John's key, Keith's key. The more number of people, the more number of keys Bob will have, and managing all of them would be difficult. Lack of non-reputation. So symmetric key cryptography cannot verify the sender's identity, as both sender and receiver share the same key, making sender authentication impossible in intercepted communication, right? So it's uh, it's the shared key that they're using, right? And uh, Bob can always, Alice can always say that I never sent that message. You also had the key. You only would have sent that message. I never encrypted that out, because it's not a secret. Private key is more of a secret, right? You only know it out, and public key is used by the public for using the encryption. Okay, moving to asymmetric cryptography. So the flow, as you can see, as I shared earlier, the same communication is going to happen here. Alice has to send the same message. Now, Alice has her private key and public key. Bob also has his private key and the public key, right? So for sending the message, what Alice will do, public key of Bob is known to everybody. It is available on the internet. So she will use public key of Bob and pass it to the encryption algorithm along with the message. And then she will generate a ciphertext message that will get sent to Bob, and Bob will use his private key to decrypt the message. An adversary would not be able to see it out, because using the public key, it cannot be decrypted. It can be decrypted only using the private key. And the private key is only with Bob, and even Alice doesn't know his private key, right? So Alice would be able to decrypt it out, and that will ensure repudiation as well. So popular asymmetric key algorithm or public key cryptography are RSA, Diffie-Hellman, and ECC elliptic curve cryptography. Now, what are the challenges for asymmetric cryptography? Performance, it is a bit slower, and the key management. Again, here as well, private key has to be kept secret, right? But it's not compared to the symmetric key cryptography. The key management challenges are little lesser, because the number of keys involved here are less, right? So if like Alice and Bob are communicating with each other, they would require like two keys each. If there are like 9 people talking to each other, or 10 people talking to each other, 10 plus 10, 20 keys would be required for all the communication exchanges. It would not require 45 keys as compared to symmetric cryptography, because there for each of the communication you require a unique key that comes into picture. But here everybody is just going to have 2 keys. With that, they can securely communicate with each other. Okay, before moving to hashing, I'll take a pause for any questions. And I'll look into the chat as well. Okay, there are no questions in the chat, but I'll take a pause. Any doubts or confusion on asymmetric key cryptography that we discussed? or even in the symmetric key cryptography. I'll go to this slide which compares both of them, right? So symmetric key is called as shared key because the same key is used for encryption, decryption. Asymmetric is called as public key cryptography. It uses two different keys for encrypting and decrypting, right? Public key is kind of known and shared with people with whom you want to communicate. Private key is kept as secret, right? Speed of symmetric key cryptography is faster. Asymmetric is little slower, right? And used for symmetric cryptography is used for encrypting large amount of data because it is fast. And key exchange is problem in symmetric key cryptography. That is not a problem in asymmetric key cryptography because each user are having their public key and private key. Public key gets shared and that can be used by anybody, right? And private key is kept confidential. And asymmetric key cryptography helps asymmetric key cryptography mechanism in doing key exchange. So I see that Shruti has raised hand. Shruti, please go ahead.
Sandeep, just want to know how in organization symmetric and asymmetric is used in different levels.
Okay, so I mean the examples that you see here, Shruti, that if you have you're taking backup and if you want to keep that data protected, you will be using symmetric key cryptography because it is larger amount of data that you're using for doing that out. Uh, any communication that happens over TLS, right? So that will be using both symmetric and asymmetric. To start with, it would be asymmetric because the secret exchange or the key exchange has to happen. Subsequent communication will be using symmetric key cryptography. So for any communication that is happening over TLS in the organization, uh, the team talk that you're doing, browsing any of the internet or confidential document, that will be using both symmetric and asymmetric. If you are using say digital signature, so to some extent that would be public and private key cryptography, so that would be asymmetric cryptography that will be happening. But for creating any backup for kind of database protection from data to getting leaked, data at rest largely is symmetric, and data in transmission will involve asymmetric along with symmetric. So any data that gets protected at rest, in most of the cases, it would be using the symmetric cryptography because that is simpler to manage. If you take example of AWS services, right? Uh, you would be using KMS where the keys are kept. Those keys are used for symmetric encryption for encrypting S3 buckets or any data, but then they are securely exchanged. So when it gets come over the wire, when it gets exchanged over the internet, as part of that, asymmetric will come into picture because secure exchange has to happen. But primarily, the use of symmetric would be in encrypting the data that you have of your customers, and you would be using a key, and that key would be securely kept somewhere. There was a question on WhatsApp is an example of which kind of encryption, symmetric or asymmetric. So see, wherever TLS is used, wherever you are having a data in transit, both will come into picture. For establishing the session, the exchange of the session key, a symmetric key will come into picture. Beyond that, it would be symmetric. So, but for keeping the backup encrypted that's lying on your storage, that would be using symmetric key encryption, right? So wherever it is a data, it has to be encrypted, symmetric key will come into picture. Wherever it is an exchange that is happening, there asymmetric will definitely come into picture. So it is a combination of both. For encrypting the backup, it is only symmetric data. Whatever backup you have on the device, that would be using symmetric encryption, right? Unless they're using digital signature to sign it out and do those kind of a thing. But if it is just purely encryption at rest, then it would be symmetric encryption.
Sandeep,
Which,
can you just tell that symmetric flow once again, just the flow?
Sure, I'll go to that. Which algo is used with situation example possibility hacker? Which algo is used which situation example? See, the algos which are not outdated, which are prevalent, like if you use any of the RSA and DSA algo, AES algorithm for encryption, that's considered good, right? If you're using some of the outdated ones, which is not prevalent in the industry today, then that would be a problem, right? But more than algo, the key protection becomes important. Irrespective of whether you use a strong algorithm, if you're not protecting the key, if your private key for asymmetric cryptography that you're using, that gets leaked, algorithm cannot protect you because the whole secret and the whole magic happens because of the key. Same for symmetric cryptography, right? It's more like your password. If you leak your password, you're doomed. It's not a fault of Google or Amazon or FactSet or facebook.com, any of those service provider. It's a problem of user losing their password. Same is for the key. You should not be losing the key. Algorithm will not be able to protect you if you're not keeping your key protected, handling it diligently and maturely. In means of strength of algorithm, yeah. So the RSA algorithms are still good. AES is still good. So continue using them out. Yes. So the answer to this question is yes. That's how it would be. That and why symmetric key is used for exchange, further exchange, because that is faster, that is more efficient. So that kind of helps you in doing quick communication over the internet. Do we need algorithm knowledge for further proceed? Though I mean, unless you are a cryptographer and you are researching on algorithm, you don't need algorithms knowledge, right? I mean, when you drive a bus or a vehicle, suppose that you're driving a two-wheeler, do you need to understand complete engine of the two-wheeler to drive it out? No, it's more of a black box. Same here as well. For using embracing cryptography, I mean, it's good to understand the engine of the scooter that you're driving or a two-wheeler that you're driving, but it's not mandatory for you to drive. So for embracing cryptography, it's not mandatory. I think in means of strength of algorithm, I have already told that RSA, DSA, yes, those are good that you can continue using. Random key for protection. Yeah, the key strength should be good, and it should not be something that is guessable, right? And there are systems that automatically generate the key, use them out. It should not be that you are trying to have a custom algorithm and thinking that. Also, another thing I'll recommend for cryptography, do not build your own custom cryptography. That is not recommended. The ones that are already existing, those are proven systems and you should continue using them out and follow their guidelines for the key generation, key protection, key rotation. All those should be followed. Now there was a ask to go to the symmetric key cryptography flow, so I'll quickly go through it. Plain text message that's there. Alice needs to send that, and Alice uses a key that she has already shared with Bob. Bob is already having the key. She passes down the a message and the key to the encryption algorithm. The message gets transferred into a ciphertext that cannot be readable by anybody who snoops around or eavesdrop. The message reaches to Bob. He has the key and he is able to decrypt the message and arrive to the actual message that Alice has sent to him. Now, if Bob gives the key to the attacker, he also would be able to decrypt it out by guessing the decryption algorithm and passing the message and the key. Because he already has the message, he's not having the key, and he can try with multiple decryption algorithm. If you think that algorithm is a secret, no, that's not a secret. It's just that you would be using one of the popular algorithms. So algorithm is never secret. The key is the secret that has to be protected. I'll take a pause if there are any questions on this. OTP is not a form of a key. It is more of a token for multi-factor authentication. OTP ensures that it goes to a particular mobile number that is associated with your account and not to any other mobile number. It is very short-lived token, right? You can consider or compare it to some extent with a session ID or session identifier. Session IDs are longer lived. OTPs are like 60 seconds or 1 minute or 5 minutes at max, right? And they can be used just one time password. Sessions key could be used multiple times. So they are not kind of keys. I'll move along. We have more content to cover, but if you have any doubts, clarification, what is checksum used for? So that we will move as part of the hashing. So we'll come to the checksum part. So that's in the queue, and I'll be covering that out. So these are the algorithm that I mentioned here. You can continue using them. AES is still considered good, and predominantly across the industry, AES is used. This is asymmetric key cryptography. So the number of keys required for symmetric key is pretty high compared to asymmetric key cryptography if exchange is happening in a larger pool of people, right? So in case of asymmetric cryptography, each user will have two keys, whereas in case of symmetric key cryptography, each pair of user need to have that many keys, right? So becomes a combination, right? So if 10 people are communicating, each of them will have two key in case of asymmetric cryptography or public key cryptography. So 10 into 2, 20. Whereas in case of symmetric key cryptography, each of them would be like requiring for each pair, you will require unique keys for the communication. So it will become 10 into 10 minus 1 divided by 2, 10 into 9 divided by 2, which is 45. So 20 versus 45. And as you go higher in terms of number of users, this will keep multiplying. So suppose that there are 100 users. So it would become 100 into 99 by 2, which is 50 into 99. So it will be more close to say 4,500 kind of a number that you will get from there. Whereas in case of asymmetric cryptography, it would be just 200. So 1,000 versus close to 5,000 versus 200. The number of keys will drastically and exponentially keep increasing in case of symmetric cryptography. So performance is a challenge. This is not as fast as symmetric cryptography. The key exchange is a problem in the symmetric key cryptography. So asymmetric key cryptography becomes a friend of symmetric key cryptography in solving its problem of a key exchange. Now let's talk about hashing, right? So somebody asked a question on the checksum, so we'll come to that. So what is hashing, right? Here is an example. Suppose that you are making a smoothie, right? And you're always using the same, precisely the same in like milligrams, the same amount of content, pass it to a mixture, and the output would always be the same, of the same color, same taste, and same amount, because you're not changing anything even by a little bit, right? Suppose that you're not putting a banana into it, then the whole output would no longer be same, it's going to change. That's how a hashing is also there. If you pass the same text or the same file without slightest of change in it, it will always generate the same value of it. That you can call it as a checksum, right? Because that value will not change unless you change the input. Let's take example of the batters that we make for preparing dosa batter or appam batter or idli batter. I mean, most of you would be knowing that there is a slight difference between the dosa batter and the idli batter, right? So if you change the ingredients little bit, the quantity of dal and the quantity of rice, the final outcome that you will get would be more aligned to make dosas. And in case of idli, if you kind of reduce the quantity, some of these quantities, that batter, you can prepare dosa and idli for either of them, but it will be more suiting kind of preparation of dosa or idli, vice versa. So it depends on the variance of little bit of the quantity, the outcome changes. The final outcome is no longer same. But if you don't change the input and if you keep it constant, you will always going to get the same output. Suppose that I kind of do not put the right proportion in the idli or dosa batter. I put like more amount of dal than rice, and the final outcome, I'm not able to prepare idli or dosa, and it keeps happening over and over again. because I'm not changing the input. I'm just sticking with that, and the final output is always going to be the same. That's how hashing is. If you pass it the same string, suppose that I pass it the string to it that Har Shakti is a very good program for women professionals, right? If I pass this as an input and generate a checksum for that or a hash for that, the output is going to be the same. If you pass the same input from your end as well to kind of a hashing algorithm that I have used, you will also get the same checksum, right? Same for the batter. If I just tell you that follow this mechanism to prepare the batter, that is not working at my end. You try the same, it will not work at your end because you will get the same output. It's not going to change unless you apply your brain and change the output. Now, the input that we passed is Har Shakti is a wonderful program for women professionals. I didn't put a full stop at the end of it, right? And I generate a checksum. You put a full stop at the end of it, and when you generate the checksum, the whole checksum will not match because of just an iota of difference. That full stop that you added, that will change its format, and the final output or hashing output that you will get will no longer be same. So that's a bit of hashing. The whole output of hashing at times is also called as a checksum, that is used to check if something has got tampered or modified by somebody else, right? So suppose that I give you a text and I give a checksum of it, right? I give a text that Har Shakti is a wonderful program, and I give you the checksum or hash for it. Now I pass it to you, but somebody in between changes it to Har Shakti is not a wonderful program, right? Now they do not change the hash or the checksum for it. When you get the message, you generate the checksum for Har Shakti is not a wonderful program. You compare it with the checksum that I have shared and it doesn't match us. Then you know that it's not the same message that Sandeep has sent because the checksum is not matching, right? So that's the whole purpose of checksum, right? Now let's come to the computer world, right? In computer terms, the recipe is known as a hash function. It takes any amount of data like file, password, or message and processes it to produce a hash, which is sort of string of letters and numbers, right? The hash helps in checking their data integrity as we discussed earlier, and confirming the meal is the same, right? If you don't make any changes in the ingredients of the smoothie that you see, you will always going to get output, the same output, right? So that's what is integrity. You cannot later say that okay, it was not tasting good, you didn't put strawberry and banana and you just put these three items, and you are going to come, if you complain to person, then he or she will say that hey, you didn't follow the ingredients well, right? Looking at your final outcome, it doesn't seems like you have followed my instructions properly, right? Now, popular algorithm for hashing is MD5, SHA-1, SHA-2. MD5 and SHA-1 are considered to be weaker, though there would still be applications of SHA-1 that exist in the industry. SHA-2 is something that is encouraged to be used considering the future requirements, right? Now, one more characteristic of hashing is that irrespective of what length input you give, the final value would be of the same length if you are using the same algorithm, right? So suppose that I pass hello world to this, it will produce this output. I pass hello world with exclamation mark. The number of characters here would be same 32 characters, but the value would no longer be same. It will vary. Okay, I'll take a look into the question if there are any questions. So every communication on the network essentially is a combination of symmetric and asymmetric key cryptography. Yeah, it depends if it is yeah, I mean anything that uses network communication or TLS for sure, that would be combination of both. If you're taking example of SFTP, I'm not sure if whether it encrypts the file, but yeah, the name suggests SFTP. So yeah, that also should be combination of both. Same should be the SSH sessions and those kind of sessions. But for sure, TLS uses both of them. Okay. Any questions that you have before I proceed further description of hashing? Okay, I'll carry on. Maybe after this, we can take a pause and let me do a quick time check. I still have time. Hashing is a process used in computing to convert input data of any size into a fixed size string of characters, which is typically a digest that represents the original data. So in this example, you can see hello world MD5 hash algorithm that I've used. That is not considered as secure, but I just used it for demo. This is the hash for it. If you generate a hash for the exact same string without changing anything at your end also, you are also going to get the same string value. So, I mean, if you want to search for MD5 hash calculator and pass hello world with a space, the string is not a new line character, but there is a space, right? You'll finally get the same output. It's not going to change because we're using the same algorithm. If you use SHA-1 instead of hello world, you will get a different output. You will not get a same output. Now the next string is hi India, and I use a MD5 algorithm. I get a different output, but the number of characters are same. So the output character with hashing will be same for a given algorithm. I pass her key exclamation at the rate hash dollar symbol, and the output is going to be the same. Here there is no space. Here there is a space between hi and India, hello and world. There is a space. Here it's a single string that we have passed, and you will get a 32 character string, but it will not be same as hi India. It will be different. Now suppose that any of you try this at your end and pass again hello world, or even if I try to pass hello world again, right, I'll get the same output, right? So this is a depiction that whoever is passing the same input to the hashing algorithm, right, irrespective of who is passing it out, they will get the same output. You can see this output and this output is same, but depending on the larger length or smaller length, the output length is not going to vary. It is going to be always 32 character for MD5 algorithm. If you're using something else, it will be different. So key points of hashing: it has a fixed size output that we have clearly understood. Efficiency, so they are quick, they are very fast, they can easily get generated. Deterministic, the same input consistently yields the same hash value, right? So you can see hello world here, hello world here, it produced the same output. Uniqueness, ideally unique inputs produce unique hashes. Though there are collisions, that's why MD5 or SHA-1 are considered as weak, because for two different output also, inputs also, they have started producing the same output, right? So that's what is called as hash collision. SHA-1, it is still difficult to find or do a hash collision. MD5, it is considered as weak collision, weak from hash collision perspective. It is a one-way hash function. So once you are generated this, right, you cannot convert it by passing it back to any algorithm to the original text. So it is one way. Encryption that we are seeing, it can be decrypted. Hashing cannot be reversed. You cannot get back to this format. Yeah, you can do a hash comparison and derive a string or understand, okay, this was the string. You can kind of create a dictionary of multiple strings and do a hash comparison, that okay, for hello world, this is the hash, MD5 hash for that. Let me put that in a dictionary, and Sandeep commonly uses these passwords. Suppose that my common password are test password 1234 ABCD XYZ ZWQRET. These are the commonly used password. Somebody who knows my pattern, what, and they know the hash of all the passwords that I have used, right? What he or she can do, they can put all these commonly used strings that Sandeep uses, and create hashes of them. And for any of the password where the hash is available, he or she can do a hash comparison and then find out what was the exact plain text password that I was using, right? So suppose that I give you one of these strings that you're seeing here, and you know that one of them is this, right? You can go ahead and generate kind of suppose that I give you this string as part of the chat and tell you to find what was the message that I've sent. Let me copy this, and if I can pass this in the chat. Okay, it is not getting pasted here. Okay. So suppose that I give you this message and tell you to find what is the actual string for this. From here you can see that it is hi India. But suppose that I have not shared. I have given you 6 strings, right? In that case, what you can do, you can generate the hashes of all those 6 strings and then do a hash comparison and then find out which of the strings hash I have really given to you. So that's how people kind of reverse the hashes. You cannot reverse it using algorithm. You can only do a dictionary based attack when you already know that it is definitely from this list of strings, and you will generate the hashes for all those strings and compare it with the target hash that you want to crack or find out. So I'll quickly to demo the exercise. Let me go to online MD5 generator. Okay, and I'll just see if I can pass hello world to this. I hope it will generate the same one. It should be generating the same string, right? So it generated this string. I hope my screen in the browser is also visible. Can one of you confirm that out? You can see my browser as well, right?
Yes, it's visible.
Awesome. So this was the hello world hash, right? So I just paste this. You can see that you're getting the same hash, right? Now, for a given string, the hash is going to be the same, and that's why it is used for integrity check, right? Whether somebody has modified the string, they will say send the hash also, and then you can quickly check, compare the hash, do a hash comparison, and see whether it was really the same string or not. Okay, what are the common uses of hashing? It is used for data integrity checks, agreed, password storage, right, and data retrieval, right? Enhance quick data lookup in the structures like hash tables, improving efficiency. So why don't we encrypt the passwords? Why do we hash it out? Password is something which is very personal, right? And even the service provider organization, be it any e-commerce website, they do not want to see the password. They do not want to have the ability to see your password as well. So what they do, they kind of hash it out before putting it into the database. So when you register for the first time on any website, you enter your username, you type your password, you retype the password. If both the passwords are matching, when it reaches to the server will pick up that password, hash it, and then put it in the database. The server absolutely beyond that has no knowledge because it cannot reverse your password, right? Because hashing is one way. Now, next time when you log in, what will happen that when as part of the login, you will not enter the hash. You will enter your username and the password string or the text. The password will go to the server. Server will again generate the hash using the same hashing algorithm and do a hash comparison and then see whether the passwords are matching or not. So that's the whole reason why password is hashed and how the hash comparison happens. Okay, so I see that there is a hash is specific to task or org or generic. See, hashing is always on the basis of algorithm, right? Here I'm using a MD5. Along with hash, it is recommended to use a salt also. Salt is something which will kind of vary the hashing, or it would be unique per hashes, right? So suppose that two of your users are using the same password. If you start using different salts for them, the final hash output that you will get would be different, right? So that also is a mechanism, and I'll not delve deeper into that because that itself becomes a complete subject into that. That's a way to, its salt is not key, but it is something that kind of hash, right? So in case of smoothie example, you can see that somebody might be adding 1 pinch of salt, somebody might be adding 2 pinches of salt. So that causes a variance in the taste, right? Similarly, it will cause a variance on the, you will know how much you have added. You will store the salt in the database so as to be able to derive the actual value that you want to derive. So dictionary or hash is specific to tasks or organization. No, as in this case of example, right? That I share you one of these hashes. What would be the dictionary here, right? In case of this, in the example that we are seeing here, hello world, hi India, uh, then her key, exclamation, at the rate, hash, and dollar, right? Hello world, right? So this becomes a dictionary. Why it is dictionary? Because these are the strings. Yeah, there is a typo error. So please ignore any typo errors. Uh, as these are the strings based on which these hashes are defined. Now to make it more complex, I kind of tweak it around and give you more strings like this, right? Like it could be hello, it could be hi as well, right? It could be har shakti as well. So now this becomes your dictionary from which these strings are defined. How can you find out a dictionary of things? You have to research and analyze for a given organization by studying the pattern, right? If an organization is saying that the password should be 8 characters, it cannot be more than 9 characters. So your dictionary would always use 8-character strings. If an organization says that below 8 characters password are not accepted, so your dictionary will never include any words like test because it is 4 character, 1 2 3 4, it will not include. So you will create a meaningful dictionary by understanding the by fingerprinting, trying to get understanding on the requirements that the organization is putting forward on the password. And then you can you can use the whole word list of a dictionary also for a dictionary attack, because a lot of people are kind of popularly use some words, right, for creating their password, or the names also, right? They'll be, it will be based on their names, right? Their password, it could be, for example, I've seen people using passwords like john at the rate 15, 15th is your day of birth, right? So that becomes more of a thoughtful dictionary that you're creating to target or derive a hash for anybody. Let me see if there are any questions. Thanks, sir. Hash plus salt, dictionary or hash is plus. Yeah, so I answered that. Okay, so I'll move along. We have digital to cover, and then we have a quiz also, right? So why digital signature? So Alice sends a message to Bob and says change the password. Bob receives the message, right? Now, concern of Bob, Alice may deny sending the message because it's just a message that has come. He may say that Alice may say that I never sent that message, or that message may not have altogether come from Alice. It might have come from the attacker, right? Pretending or spoofing to be Alice. So Bob, before going ahead and taking the action, needs to be sure Alice will not be able to deny sending the message, non-repudiation. Alice only was not tampered, authentication and integrity, right? So suppose the message, but Alice sent the message, do not change the password, but attacker changed it to change the password, right? So tampering also should not have happened, and it should generally have come from Alice. So authenticity also should be there, right? So this is the whole reason why digital signature come into picture, right? Now with digital signature, it will be like this. Alice sends a message to Bob, and Alice uses private key of her, right? And kind of uses the digital signature generation algorithm, and she sends her the message to the Bob, change the password, and then Bob uses the public key of Alice to decrypt the message and verify whether it is valid or not, and true, whether it is true or false or not. So here it is not about protecting the data or encrypting or hiding the data. Digital signature is more about authenticity, right? And and the integrity as well. That data is not tampered. So you see here that there was a signature that got created, and then the message that got sent had a signature, right? And the signature is hash. It is electronically generated signature, right? And that can be verified, and he verifies it using the public key of Alice, and signature is valid. And then, based on true or false, he's able to ascertain that the message came from Alice. So you might have seen digital signatures in your Form 16 that comes from your financial head or a lot of other financial documents, right? So that's the whole digital signature we are talking about. Some people will have their own private key via which they generate that signature and finally pass the message that signature is valid, right? If somebody does a tampering, then the message changes that the signature is no longer valid, because signature is valid only for the change the password message. And when it reaches to the person, it will automatically go through the digital signature verification algorithm. It will put an alert saying that signature is not valid. So with digital signature, Alice would not be able to deny sending the message, as her private key is known only to her. Private key is not supposed to be shared, and Alice has to keep her private key secured, right? She cannot deny it out. It's sharing your private key with other people. It's more like giving a blank check to somebody, crying and complaining that I didn't give that check to somebody, right? Digital signature also ascertains authenticity and integrity. That message is not from some anyone else, right? So it does ensure authenticity and integrity. Popular algorithm for digital signature are again RSA, DSA, and EC DSA. Okay, before going to quiz, we can take a pause or maybe have a look into the digital signature flow again, right?
Sir, digital signature, it may be like other signature where we put the signature or sometime keyboard signature. Both the algorithm will be same, or how it is getting recognized?
Where do you put the keyboard signature?
Since last time Magic Brick, they asked me an agreement and got a signature said as digital signature, wherein I could not sign through the pen, electronic pen or something. So I typed my name and it took a digital signature.
Okay, so that would not be a digital signature in true sense. I mean, it's more of an online signing that you're doing, right?
Okay.
You're not using any private key unless the Magic Bricks internally is using your password as a private key. And I doubt because I've seen those kind of a signature. It will just be your name, right? Somebody else also types the name, they will generate the same thing, right?
It is a legal document actually.
Okay, so I am not sure on their flow whether it's really the digital signature that here, because digital signature would be with the people who are professionals, more like your finance head who is a certified chartered accountant, right?
Okay.
He will
Okay.
generate your Form 16 and document, or the Aadhaar letter also that you get, that will have a digital signature that you download, right? So that's more of a digital signature, because person whoever is kind of generating that out, they'll have their private key being used to generate that out.
Okay. Okay.
So as you can see, consider Alice here as your CA of your organization who is generating your Form 16. He is using his private key. He is passing the message. The message is your document here, right? Your Form 16 document, along with his private key to the digital signature algorithm that will generate a signature and then embed that signature in the message, which is your document. The message will reach to you. You are Bob here, right? You will have the ability to verify whether it is authentic or not by clicking on that digital signature to see whether it is valid or not, right? In Acrobat Adobe Reader, we would have seen that out, and it will tell us whether it is authentic or not. That automatically happens, and inadvertently you are using the public key of Alice or the CA, because his public key would be available, and automatically Acrobat Reader on the fly will do that out. That will not be visible to you, but in the background that happens.
So I have one question here. This public key of Alice Bob is getting, because previously three-way handshake has happened and the keys are exchanged here.
No, public, always, right? So there is no exchange required.
Okay.
Private key is with Alice. Public key would be you can publish it on the internet.
Okay.
So that's how it would be. So remember, public key name itself says that it is public.
Yes.
It's known.
Mm-hmm.
Any doubts on this? Okay, so we need some time for quiz. So we'll go ahead with the quiz. But yeah, remember the concepts, and I've tried to simplify. I know that there are a lot of things tried to cover as much as possible. I didn't delve into salt, but I went through the Infosys certification syllabus. They have not gone to that extent on the salt and other areas, right? But at the same time, whatever are the kind of the crux of the matter that I've tried to cover here. So digital signature is not encryption, more of a authenticity, non-repudiation. Do not get confused into public and cryptography here. It uses public and private key. That's the application, but it is not used for protecting the data or keeping the data confidential. It is meant for authenticity, repudiation, and integrity. That data is not tampered. Data is coming from a genuine source, trusted source. So, Avneet, I'll request you to launch the quiz now.
Yeah, it's live, Sandeep.
Thanks, Avneet. So people just attend it out and attend it freely. I don't want you people to have any inhibition. There is no tracking. We cannot track what you're answering. And you have already gone through most of the learning. So I'm sure that you would be able to answer.
Ladies, only 8 of you have participated out of 39 candidates. Come on, I mean, like, that's the least we can do to, justify the session. Please start participating. We will not keep it open for very long. Sandeep, please let me know when you want me to close this.
Sure, Neat. Yeah. We can give, and then we'll see. I think it's 4 minutes 45, right? So we can keep it open till 8 minutes.
Sure.
3 more minutes, people. Try to answer. To see 50% of you have already submitted. Now it's little 55%. Yeah. The remaining 45% people, hurry up and still have 2 minutes. So if you want to take time, that's perfectly fine. Awesome. So last 1 minute to go. 75 have participated, so that's good to see. Last 30 seconds.
And I'm closing it now.
Thanks, Avneet.
The results are live, Sandeep.
Thanks, Avneet. So the first question is Bob wants to send Alice a confidential message using public key, right? So send a message to Alice using public key cryptography, public and private key, right? So Bob will never have Alice's private key because that is supposed to be private. Bob has to use her public key to encrypt the message, and Alice would have to kind of use her private key to decrypt it out, right? So the answer would be Alice public key. Tie between Bob's private key and Alice public key, but the right answer would be Alice public. Confused in digital signature and the public key cryptography. That's a common thing that people get confused, but do not get confused. Which of the following is true regarding symmetric cryptography? So requires secure exchange of key establishing, and symmetric key cryptography uses private and public key. No. key cryptography doesn't uses that out, right? Symmetric key cryptography just has one key. It's called as key or encryption key, whatever you call it as. Asymmetric cryptography has public and private key. So the right answer, I see that 63% of the people have given the right answer. I'm concerned about 28% of the people, but hopefully now things are clear for you. These are required to implement a symmetric cryptography system. Yeah, so I see that a good number of people have given this answer. Symmetric key requires more number of keys, right? So this is the right answer. It would be 100 into 99, 200, it is 200, right? Yeah, 200 into 199 divided by 2, so which becomes 199,000,000. Yeah. So this is the right answer. What is symmetric cryptography primarily used for? Yeah, I think 97% of the people data encryption. Awesome. So this is correct. That's the whole reason that you want to encrypt the data. You want to protect the data. So that's the whole reason. But the data alteration, no. I mean, it's not used for data alteration. The data is intact. It gets encrypted. In symmetric cryptography, which is also called as shared key cryptography, where the key is shared but for encryption and decryption, how many keys are used to encrypt and decrypt the data? 1% of the people have given the right answer, because that's symmetric key cryptography or shared key cryptography. There is a shared key between both the parties. What is another common name for asymmetric cryptography? Public key cryptography. So 62% of the people have given the right answer. How does asymmetric cryptography differ from symmetric cryptography in terms of key usage, right? Particularly to the key usage. So it uses different keys for encryption and decryption. 86% of you have given the right answer. That's good. What is the main characteristic of good hash function in terms of output? Fixed size output for sure. It doesn't give any colorful output. So one person has given that answer. It doesn't give numeric output because what we saw was alphanumeric, right? And variable size output, no. The size of the output is always same. So fixed size output, 63% of you have given the right. Hash functions are designed to be slow and irreversible, slow and reversible, slow and irreversible, fast and irreversible, and fast and irreversible. So 50% of you have given the right answer. Hashing is very fast and you cannot reverse it by passing it to the algorithm. You can use a dictionary attack, but that's not reversing. That's more of a hash comparison to find out or predict the actual string. What is critical aspect to do digital signature provide to ensure sender authenticity? So non-repudiation for sure. Encryption, it doesn't provide. We discussed that the signature provides a non-repudiation, authenticity, and integrity. Compression, it doesn't provide. Expansion, it doesn't provide. How do digital signature contribute to data integrity? They prevent unauthorized data modification. If the data gets modified, it will kind of alert or show the data as not trusted. So 71% of you have given the right answer. Digital signatures authenticate the identity of a signatory, which cryptography concepts is primarily used to verify a digital signature. So verifying the digital signature, the public key is used that we saw in the flow. For signing or generating the signature, private key is used. So the right answer is asymmetric encryption. 32% of you have given the right answer here, and 46% have gone for hashing. There is nothing in digital signature related to kind of hashing. Hashing is different and signature is different. Digital signature uses public and private key pairs. It is not asymmetric encryption, but it uses public and private key pairs. You can take it that way. Which of the following is not a goal of cryptographic technique? So not a goal. So a lot of you have got confused and answered confidentiality, integrity, and authentication. These are goals of cryptography system. Accessibility is not a goal. And 48% of you have given the right answer. I'll take a pause for any questions. I think the quiz wise we are done. If you still have any confusion, right? I mean, one common confusion is that Alice uses key while sending while signing the digital signature, whereas when it comes to public and private key, when sending a message, Alice, when she's sending a message, she will use the public key of Bob. So when she'll be using a private key of hers, right? Because she's putting her signature. When she's sending a message to Bob, she will use a public key of Bob to encrypt the message. So both are two different concepts. So somebody is asking 10th question. Are the questions still available? Let me see if I can go to that polls. Okay. What critical aspect of do digital signature provide to secure sender authenticity, right? So whether somebody is authentic or not, they cannot deny. So non-reputation is the closest answer. It could have been better if I would have included authentication here, but it doesn't provide encryption, right? It doesn't provide digital signature. So this is more of a something that you would have to rule out from the compression. Has nothing to do with digital signature. Expansion has nothing to do with digital signature. So the right answer and the closest answer for this would be non-repudiation. That from the authenticity perspective, somebody cannot repudiate saying that I've not done. By repudiation, I mean deny, refute that they kind of sent that message. So in a way that provides authentication as well. Okay, anything else? Okay. Any other question, people, on cryptography that you have? You can share the quiz questions to them for their practice if they want to practice at their end. So these questions are prepared by me just for the sessions. These are not available on the web, but I'm sharing that with you people for your own learning and taking it forward.
Sure, Sandeep will share these quiz, this one also. We have shared the previous ones already with all of them.
Awesome. Okay, so if there are no, okay, let me see if there is anything in question.
Yeah, hi Sandeep.
Sure, but go ahead.
Is there any sub-branch where in a career path where it deals with the cryptography, means cryptography mainly, or?
So you can become like a crypto expert in the organization as well, right? Most of the organization do have crypto experts who will provide the guidance to the teams when it comes to the crypto aspect, like key management.
Okay.
When you're doing encryption, you'll have a lot of keys, key rotation, and keeping it securely, keep exchanging it securely. When you're working with a B2B partner, there would be a lot of exchanges of public and private keys that are happening in those cases. Uh, suppose that they send you some encrypted customer related data over a database, then they have to exchange the key. So crypto experts are there with you are working on designing an application where you're using cryptography properly or not. So that role exists, but it is not in abundance, right? It will not be in a huge number as a pen tester or a SOC expert. Like every organization might just have one crypto expert, but they might have like 5 or 6 SOC engineer, five or 10 pen testers, right? So compared to the abundance, the requirement on the crypto side would be less. Furthermore, you can do research on the crypto side in terms of finding out how secure are the crypto system. So that could become a more of a PhD topic. But industry wide, yeah, there are roles, but it is not many.
Thanks, Sandeep. And I'm having another one question, maybe how relevant, maybe somewhere it is relevant. I have done my QKD, means quantum key cryptography, that course as well. I did a reverse engineering, now I'm studying cryptography, and that's why. And how in some papers and all I read, like quantum QKD, it is breaking a RSA algorithm and all those things. Is really the industry is impacted, or it is in a smaller scale and there is a anti something, the protection for that? How the current?
crypto is kind of to some extent would impact it, but we are not there yet, right? It's just in concept wise, POC way, but exploitation wise, defying the system, and we should start being paranoid. No, I don't think we are there yet. I mean, if you compare, SHA-1 is theoretically broken, right? Uh, Not theoretically, practically it is broken, but it is still used because breaking SHA-1 for an adversary with amount of compute and amount of effort that it will take, that's going to be massive. So we are still using SHA-1, though it is for any new system or application that you're it is recommended that don't use SHA-1 from hashing perspective. But it's not that entire internet today or all the organization have stopped using SHA-1. You will still find MD5 usage even though there is a hash collision. But kind of exploiting or bringing into a practical exploitability, you remember likelihood and impact. So
Yes.
both of them are less when it comes to the quantum crypto exploitation from breaking the crypto system perspective at the moment. But cybersecurity field is ever evolving. That's a known threat, and industry is or would be already working in moving away and defending it out.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Sandeep.
No problem. Any other questions?
Sandeep, Rashmi here. I have one thing. In digital signature, like we have seen, if it is going well, then it is decrypting with public key. In what scenario it can go wrong, and what will be the situation? Can you just if
Sure.
you are not putting public key, or what can be?
Yeah, so the prime problem with digital signature is when the key gets compromised, right? You do not know the key is compromised and somebody is signing on your behalf. I mean, same thing. Always consider digital signature as your own signature that you use for banking purpose, right? What happens if you have signed on all the checkbooks and given it to somebody? You can go bankrupt very well with that, right? So same with the digital signature key. The prime thing is handling the private key. That should be well handled. That should be properly secured, right? That becomes one area. If the key gets compromised, then you have to rotate it out, revoke the digital signature or the certificate that you have so that it is no longer trusted and it appears as though it is revoked, right? So those all diligence is required from the digital signatory, whoever is signing it out.
So that is from the person who is sending that. Like in this case, from the Alice side, we are from the Bob side. So what we can do, eh, like I am trying to ask, they are keeping everything safe. They are sending. What can go wrong from our end?
From your side, I don't think anything can go wrong because the whole control of the digital signature would be in hand of Alice. I mean, compare it with the digital certificate that each website has, right? If the website is compromised, your data can get compromised. So in your case, you would not have much control as Bob unless Alice alerts you and says that, hey, my signature was compromised. Do not that is getting sent or that I've sent in last so many days. So the whole onus is on Alice to alert you. From your side, I mean, you can add additional level of validation to be sure that not, but industry today trust digital signature, and it expects people to kind of understand what they are owning, right? And digital signature bias process to acquire a digital signature. So you would be required to go through a thorough understanding what you are owning. It's as good as a gun that you are owning a gun and you're firing at people without really realizing that that can kill them out, right? Same with digital signature that you have to show your diligence when you sign on something, and you have to ensure that it doesn't get compromised because it undermines you as a professional organization. When you see something suspicious, you can double check with Alice in those cases, right? Suppose that you get a request from Alice maybe heuristic or AI based approach to kind of evaluate the kind of data that you have received. If it looks out of sync or out of order and looks suspicious, then for sure you can go back and recheck with Alice on that. But in that channel also, you have to authenticate, verify the authenticity of Alice by using a different channel and be sure that yeah, that message has come from Alice. So yeah, using heuristic based approach to some extent can do it out, but at the moment I think the industry is laid back, and they still continue to trust digital signatures because that's a seal of authenticity.
So map all the controls from the sender side and from our side.
I couldn't hear that out. Could you just
That means
repeat?
all the controls from the sender side. This is what I understand.
Yeah, so if you go and read Rashmi about the Stuxnet attack, the digital signatures of some of the organizations were stolen, and all the applications that were running in the Iranian nuclear plant, the Windows operating system, the Siemens SCADA system, all of them trusted that digital signatures that were there, or the digital certificates. They were stolen by some adversaries. They signed some binaries, some malwares, and those malwares were not detected as malware because they were carrying the genuine certificate, right? So the prime thing is that keeping the private information private, that's very much important. And that's how the whole trust equation in this whole ecosystem works. But I'll encourage you to go back and read, say, Stuxnet attack. How did it really happen? You have a lot of cool videos on YouTube. It might be an 1 hour video. You would be like amazed by the whole preparation, how the attack happened, and like how smaller changes could have prevented that attack from happen. Like they kept their USB ports open on the office infrastructure or the Iranian nuclear plant infrastructure. The whole system was having just one network. It was not having network segregation, right? Uh, the systems were not patched. They were using outdated things. The vendors that they were using, Siemens or Microsoft, they had 0-day vulnerability. If those vulnerabilities were not there, that attack could not have happened. So one would be Stuxnet attack that I'll recommend. Other would be Solar Events attack, how the supply chain attack took place. So these are good case studies to learn and kind of get more interested in cybersecurity.
Sure. Thanks, Sandeep.
Awesome. So I think I don't see any further questions, Avneet. So maybe we can stop here. But if any of you have any other questions, do share it with Avneet and she will reach out to me.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Sandeep. Thank you so much for your time and the things you shared with the candidates. I'm sure it is boosting them up with every session. The quiz has been shared with you all, ladies, in your WhatsApp group, so you can go through again. And as already Sandeep has explained the answers and given the right answers, so you can work it up on that. So we'll meet you all again on 12th of July. The next session is scheduled on 12th, so just be available for the same. Thank you so much, Sandeep. We'll take your leave now and
Thanks,
have
everyone. Have a good
great day
day.
and weekend ahead.
Absolutely. Happy Friday. Take care, people. Have a good
Thank
day.
you. Bye-bye.